The galaxy was vast and crowded with civilizations older than most stars. Empires stretched across hundreds of systems, each ruled by beings who considered themselves wise, advanced, and unchallenged. Among these civilizations, the legend of humanity persisted, yet it was nothing more than a whisper, a myth told to scare young soldiers or amuse scholars. The humans, according to the stories, came from a distant star. They were said to be cunning, relentless, and capable of feats that no other species could match. Most aliens laughed at the tales. After all, myths were myths. Rilnar, a young scout from the galaxy-spanning alliance called the Varanth, had always been curious. Unlike others in his species, he liked exploring old ruins and ancient records. One day, while on a scouting mission near the edge of their territory, he discovered a small abandoned station drifting in space. Its design was strange, far from anything the Varanth had ever built. Inside, he found an artifact, a cube covered in lights and symbols that activated when touched. As the device hummed to life, holographic images filled the room, soldiers fighting multiple enemies alone. Huge machines bending under human strength, fleets outmaneuvering armadas. Rilnar watched, frozen. These were no fairy tales. These were humans. He sent a report to the Varanth Council. Most dismissed it. Old stories, nothing more, the elders said. But a few listened, their faces pale with worry. If humans were real, the galaxy might not be as safe as they believed. Weeks passed. Rilnar returned to his post near the frontier. Strange signals had appeared, moving faster than anything the Varanth had ever seen. Ships traveling in patterns that made no sense, disappearing and reappearing across sectors. His sensors even detected brief communications in an unknown language, perfectly coordinated and precise. The scout felt a mix of excitement and fear. The humans are out there, he thought. In the Varanth capital, a debate raged. Leaders of the Alliance argued whether the human myth required action. Some wanted to ignore it. It is impossible. Humanity is a story, said the general. Others disagreed. If they exist, even in small numbers, they could change the balance of power. We cannot risk waiting. Meanwhile, on smaller planets far from the core, ordinary citizens whispered about the humans. They told stories of invincible warriors and brilliant inventors. Farmers and merchants spoke in hushed tones. The humans, they could do anything. For most, it was still a myth, but doubt had begun to take root. Rilnar, on his scouting ship, watched the frontier with unease. One morning, his instruments picked up a massive anomaly. At first, it looked like a storm of stars, but closer observation revealed it was a fleet, not alien, not like anything in the archives. Sleek ships moved in perfect formation. They did not just travel, they seemed alive, aware, coordinated. His first instinct was to retreat. His species had never faced such power before, but something inside him urged him to watch. We cannot ignore this, he thought. If they are coming, we must learn who they are. The fleet grew larger as it approached. Sensors showed ships of various sizes, from small fighters to massive command vessels. Each moved with speed and precision the Varanth could not match. In less than an hour, the entire frontier sector lit up with their presence. Rilnar's warning. Messages barely reached the council before the first contact occurred. A Varanth patrol fleet was destroyed almost instantly. Not by overwhelming force, but by clever tactics that no alien commander could predict. Ships vanished and reappeared, striking at weak points, retreating before counterattacks could reach them. It was as if the humans had studied every possible move before even arriving. Panic began to spread. Some leaders wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to strike first. We must show strength, the general argued, but the council hesitated. None of them had faced anything like this. Even their largest fleets had failed against minor rebellions. Now, a single unknown species challenged them effortlessly. Rilnar observed more than the battles. He saw human ships scanning planets, but not attacking cities unnecessarily. They seemed disciplined, focused on objectives rather than destruction. Their power was terrifying, but there was something honorable about it, on a distant outpost. An old historian, Jorland, studied reports coming from the frontier. He muttered to himself, the stories were only half true. They are even greater than we imagined. He had spent years cataloging legends, and never had he thought one could be real. Yet here it was, humans, alive, organized, and unstoppable. Back in space, Rilner tried to follow the human fleet. He noticed patterns. They avoided populated systems unless necessary, and even when engaging patrols, they did so with precision, leaving minimal damage. Their movements seemed designed to intimidate rather than destroy, to prove strength and intelligence. For the first time in his life, Rilnor wondered if humans were not just warriors, they were something more: innovators, problem solvers, species that combined courage, strategy, and honor. If the humans were real, the galaxy would never be the same. At night, while resting in the cockpit of his ship, Rilner imagined the humans on distant worlds. He wondered what they looked like, how they spoke, and what drove them. The stories always said humans were fearless, and now he understood why. Fearless did not mean reckless. It meant understanding the risk and still moving forward. Word of Relner's observations reached a young diplomat in the capital, Lyra. She studied human culture through fragments recovered in old expeditions. While most dismissed it as myth, she felt hope. Perhaps humans could solve the galaxy's growing conflicts in ways the Varanth never imagined. Perhaps they were a force of change, not just destruction. As the frontier grew tense, strange transmissions began appearing on Varanth networks. Messages from unknown coordinates, warnings, coordinates of strategic systems. Some believed these were attempts at communication. Others thought it was a prelude to invasion. Rilner knew better. Humans were not chaotic, they were deliberate. Every move had purpose. The first skirmish that touched a major planet confirmed the fear. A small human strike force disabled the defense systems of a border station, capturing it without a single civilian casualty. News traveled fast. Populations whispered in awe and fear. The humans are real. They are coming. In secret meetings, the council realized they could no longer ignore the threat. Emergency fleets were mobilized, strategies revised, and every corner of their empire was placed on alert. Even then, there was no guarantee of success. Humans had never been fully understood. Every myth suggested power, but now Rilner and others were witnessing it firsthand. At the frontier, Rilner took a deep breath as his sensors tracked the approaching fleet. Ships of every size, moving faster than thought possible, executing maneuvers he could barely comprehend. The humans were no longer a story. They were here, and they were real. He sent one final message to the council. The humans are out there. They are not a myth. If we do not act wisely, we may not survive their arrival. For the first time, the Varanth truly feared the legends. And for the first time, the galaxy began to understand that myths sometimes hold more truth than anyone could imagine. As Rilner watched the stars, he realized the human fleet was not just approaching, they were a promise of challenge, of change, and of something extraordinary. He could not know what the humans would do next, but he felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. The humans were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Rilner's warning had reached the Varanth Council, but most leaders still struggled to comprehend the scale of the threat. The humans were no longer a story, no longer a myth. Their fleet, moving faster and with more precision than any alien force, was a reality the Varanth could not ignore. On the surface of the frontier worlds, panic was growing. Citizens watched their skies and wondered what kind of beings could strike so suddenly and so efficiently. Traders whispered about entire patrol fleets being destroyed without warning. Farmers spoke of the humans as if they were gods, capable of feats no other species could match. Yet, despite the fear, there was admiration too. The humans did not destroy entire cities or annihilate populations. Their strikes were focused, surgical, and precise. It was as if their goal was not war, but control of the situation with minimal loss. Rilner's ship followed the human fleet silently, observing every move. He noticed something curious. Humans rarely fought unless necessary. When they did engage, they moved in ways no Varanth pilot had ever seen. Ships would vanish and reappear, strike at weak points, and then retreat before alien forces could counterattack. There was no hesitation, no confusion, only careful precision. The first major encounter occurred near a strategic system called Varus Prime. The planet had been a key supply hub for the Varanth Alliance, guarded by a fleet of hundreds of warships. When the humans arrived, the Voranth commanders expected a full-scale battle. Instead, they faced an assault that seemed almost playful in its ingenuity. Small human ships darted between larger alien vessels, avoiding fire while disabling critical systems with precise strikes. Alien commanders tried to respond, but their tactics, honed over centuries, were no match for the humans' unpredictable, yet effective maneuvers. Within hours, the once formidable fleet was scattered, crippled, and forced to retreat. Back on his ship, Rilner recorded every detail. He could hardly believe what he was witnessing. The humans' coordination, strategy, and sheer intelligence surpassed anything the Varanth had expected. And yet, there was no arrogance in their approach. Every strike had purpose. Every move was deliberate. These were not mere warriors. They were thinkers, planners, and innovators. In the council halls of the Varanth capital, panic began to spread. Maps and holograms showed fleets disappearing, entire outposts falling, and communication lines disrupted. Some leaders called for retaliation, demanding that the humans be met with overwhelming force. Others urged caution, warning that direct confrontation could be catastrophic. Among them was a young strategist, Lyra. She had studied human history through fragments recovered from ancient relics and old transmissions. While others argued and shouted, she remained calm. She understood that the humans were not just strong, they were intelligent and adaptable. "We cannot fight them as we fight others," she said. "We must learn. We must observe. Anything else will lead to ruin." But few listened. Pride and fear often clouded judgment. Many of the older generals believed in the superiority of their fleets and technologies. They thought the humans could be crushed with enough firepower. They did not understand that the human strength was not in sheer numbers, but in adaptability, creativity, and determination. Meanwhile, civilians on distant planets watched events unfold with awe and fear. Messages and images of human strikes circulated quickly, sparking debate and rumor. Some claimed humans were unstoppable gods. Others said they were invaders seeking total domination. Yet even those who feared them could not help but admire the precision and efficiency of their attacks. Humans were not cruel conquerors. They were masters of strategy. Rilner noticed another detail. Human ships seemed to avoid populated areas unless necessary. When they struck, it was always at critical military targets, never cities or civilians. Even the smallest engagement seemed designed to minimize casualties while maximizing effectiveness. This approach, he realized, would make humans respected even feared to cross the galaxy. One evening, Rilner watched the human fleet move across the stars like a silent wave. He realized something important. Humans were not only powerful, they inspired hope in some and fear in others. But they never caused unnecessary suffering. This was something the Varanth had never seen before. Every other species fought for dominance, for resources, or for conquest. Humans fought for objectives and then withdrew, leaving lives intact when possible. The first true test of human strategy came during a skirmish near the planet Kara's VA Varanth. Warship had discovered a human outpost and attacked, expecting an easy victory. Instead, the humans had anticipated the move. They had set up defensive measures that immobilized the attacking ship and forced it to retreat. No lives were lost, no planets harmed. Yet the message was clear. Humanity was always several steps ahead as news of the victory spread. Alien leaders grew increasingly worried. Their fleets, trained to fight other aliens, were now outmaneuvered at every turn. Even the youngest officers began to doubt their own strategies. The humans' actions were impossible to predict. Every encounter taught them something new. Rilner sent reports continuously. They are not reckless. Every move is calculated. They do not fight like any species we know. They are learning from us, observing, adapting, Its words were met with mixed reactions. Some dismissed them as exaggeration, but others could no longer deny the truth. The humans were real, and they were extraordinary. On a small research station orbiting a distant star, a group of alien scientists studied transmissions intercepted from human communication networks. They observed patterns, logic, and strategies far beyond what their algorithms could predict. "They are not just powerful," one scientist said, "they are brilliant." It was a realization that sent a shiver through the station. Humans were not a threat in the ordinary sense. They were a challenge. A species capable of reshaping the galaxy. The first direct encounter between human and Varanth soldiers occurred on the moon of Yalara. A patrol squad tried to intercept a small human landing team. What should have been an easy battle turned into chaos for the Varanth. The humans moved with speed and coordination that defied expectation. Every attack was countered before it landed. Every move anticipated and neutralized. By the end of the engagement, the Varanth soldiers were forced to retreat. Not a single human had been injured. The Varanth leadership could not ignore it any longer. The myth was true. Humans existed, and they were unlike any species the galaxy had ever seen. Rilner observed the aftermath quietly. While others focused on the destruction or the numbers, he focused on the humans themselves. They did not celebrate. They did not gloat. Their purpose was clear, and their actions disciplined. He realized that humans combined courage, intelligence, and restraint in a way the galaxy had never experienced. At night, when he rested in the cockpit, Rilner thought about what he had witnessed. Humans were not just a threat, they were a force of change. They challenged assumptions, redefined strength, and inspired awe simply by existing. The Varanth could prepare all they wanted, but it might never be enough. In the council, the debate continued. Some argued for immediate attack. Others, like Lyra, urged careful study. "We are not dealing with an ordinary species," she said. "They will teach us, challenge us, and push us beyond what we know. If we fight recklessly, we will lose everything." Meanwhile, the humans continued their advance. They did not stop, did not hesitate, and did not underestimate their opponents. Every engagement, every strike was precise, deliberate, and effective. They were everywhere and nowhere at the same time, an unstoppable force moving through the galaxy like a shadow that no one could catch. Rilner knew. The first stage of the humans' arrival was only beginning. What he had witnessed, their speed, strategy, intelligence was extraordinary, but he suspected that even greater challenges lay ahead. The humans were not just a myth made real, they were a new reality the galaxy had to face, and as the frontier braced for the next wave of human operations, one truth became clear. The humans were no ordinary species. They were legendary, not because of stories, but because of what they could do. And soon, the entire galaxy would see it for itself. Rilner tightened his grip on the controls and stared at the approaching fleet. His heart pounded. He felt fear, yes, but also a strange sense of awe. Humans were coming. They were unstoppable. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The first signs of a new era were here. Shadows of the void stretched across the frontier, and within those shadows moved the humans, silent, precise, and inevitable. The frontier worlds had never seen anything like the humans. From the moment their ships appeared in the skies, the inhabitants felt a mixture of fear, wonder, and disbelief. Rilner watched from his ship as the first human forces approached a small planet called Terion 5, a strategic hub for the Varanth Alliance. The humans did not attack recklessly. They moved slowly at first, scanning every surface, analyzing every defense system. Alien patrols tried to intercept them, but the humans avoided unnecessary confrontations. When strikes were necessary, they were quick, precise, and efficient. Entire patrol fleets fell without a single human casualty. Rilner could not stop staring. The humans were not only powerful, they were careful, deliberate, and disciplined. Meanwhile, in the council halls of the Varanth capital, panic had turned to disbelief. Reports streamed in from the frontier. Entire fleets were scattered in hours. Strategic stations fell with minimal resistance. And yet civilians on many planets reported that the humans never harmed towns or villages. They strike only at the military, Lyra said quietly during a council meeting. They do not kill without reason. A meeting was called among the Varanth generals to plan a counterattack. Maps and holograms filled the room, showing the locations of human fleets and outposts. Some suggested overwhelming force, others argued for negotiation. The debate grew heated. Pride, fear, and anger clashed with logic. But Lyra's calm voice stood out. "We are not dealing with ordinary invaders," she said. "They are not here to conquer for wealth or resources. Every move is planned. They are intelligent, adaptable, and strong. If we fight them as we fight others, we will fail." Her words sank slowly into the minds of some, but many still clung to old strategies. Pride, after all, was a dangerous thing. On Tarian 5, the humans made their first true landing. Massive transport ships descended slowly, carefully, avoiding inhabited areas. Soldiers disembarked in formation, their movements coordinated and precise. The Varanth forces, expecting a chaotic assault, were stunned to find humans conducting operations with discipline and order. Rilnor observed the landing closely. Humans were unlike any alien soldiers he had ever seen. They moved with purpose, using technology in ways that defied expectation. Every device, every vehicle, every weapon was part of a carefully planned strategy, and yet there was restraint. They did not destroy structures unnecessarily. They did not harm civilians, and they avoided excessive force. The first confrontation came when a Varanth outpost attempted to defend the planet, its main energy facility. The humans moved in silence, striking key points with precision. Within hours, the outpost was disabled, and the humans had full control of the facility. Not a single civilian was harmed, and only a few enemy soldiers were captured alive and treated with care. Rilnor recorded every moment. His species had never seen such efficiency combined with restraint. Humans were not merely fighters, they were problem solvers, tacticians, and leaders. Their methods combined courage, intelligence, and honor in ways the Varanth had never imagined. Word of the humans' actions spread quickly. Civilians on nearby planets whispered tales of their skill. Traders spoke of humans as unstoppable warriors who valued life as much as victory. Even the young officers in the Varanth fleet began to question their own assumptions about strength and power. In the council halls, Lyra prepared a report. She explained the humans' methods in detail, emphasizing their precision and restraint. "They are not reckless," she told the council. "They are careful. They observe, plan, and execute with efficiency. They are learning as they move. If we underestimate them, we risk losing everything." Some generals scoffed, unwilling to accept the truth. Others, however, began to see what she meant. The humans' arrival was not just a military event, it was a lesson. Every strike, every maneuver, and every decision revealed a species capable of changing the rules of engagement entirely. The first encounter with human leadership occurred when the humans moved to secure Tarian 5's government center, Alien. Commanders prepared for resistance, expecting a violent assault. Instead, they were met by a human delegation. Calm, professional, and confident, the humans communicated clearly and directly. They demanded no surrender through threats. Instead, they offered terms. Compliance with strategic objectives would prevent unnecessary conflict. The Varanth were stunned. No species had ever combined strength with negotiation so effectively. Humans had shown that they were not only warriors, they were diplomats, leaders, and thinkers. Even the council was forced to admit that the humans' approach was revolutionary. Meanwhile, Rilnor noticed a strange pattern in human operations. They never stayed in one place too long, yet they always achieved their objectives. They seemed to anticipate the aliens' moves before they happened. Ships that looked isolated were part of larger, coordinated strategies, and every action had a clear purpose. The humans were not just strong, they were clever. On Tarion 5, civilians began to whisper about the humans' fairness. Stories spread quickly, captured soldiers were treated humanely, civilians were protected, and infrastructure was preserved. Even the Varanth soldiers began to respect their opponents. It was impossible not to admire them. Rilner reflected on the humans' behavior. In his lifetime, he had seen wars fought for greed, pride, or fear. No species had ever combined intelligence, discipline, and compassion in this way. Humans were changing not just the battlefield, they were changing the perception of what a species could be. In the council, arguments raged. Some wanted immediate retaliation, believing the humans' restraint was a trick. Others, including Lyra, urged careful observation. "They are teaching us without words," she said. "They are showing us that power is not just force, it is precision, strategy, and respect. We do not understand this. We will be unprepared for what comes next." The humans' next move confirmed their reputation. They advanced to secure another strategic system, not by overwhelming force, but through clever coordination. Fleets moved silently, disabling defenses and capturing control points with minimal confrontation. The aliens were unable to predict their tactics, and every attempt at counterattack failed. Rilner observed the humans closely. He noticed small details others might have missed. The way they shared information instantly. The way their ships coordinated movements as if connected by a single mind. The way their soldiers executed strategies with discipline and focus. The humans were not just a threat, they were a revelation. By the time the humans had secured the second system, the frontier was in chaos. Alien fleets were scattered, outposts disabled, and communications disrupted. Civilians, however, remained mostly unharmed, a testament to the humans' discipline. Stories of the humans' efficiency and fairness spread quickly. The myth had become reality, and reality was more impressive than any legend. Rilner sent reports constantly. "They are not here to conquer for destruction," he wrote. "They are here to achieve objectives with minimal loss. Their intelligence and strategies surpass anything we know. Varanth must adapt quickly or risk failure." Even as the Council tried to organize defenses, humans moved forward with precision. They had proven that brute force alone could not stop them. Their strategies combined intellect, discipline, and creativity in ways the Varanth had never imagined. For the first time, Rilner felt something he had never experienced before. Humans were more than warriors. They were a new standard for what a species could achieve. They were strong, clever, and honorable all at once. The galaxy had no choice but to pay attention. As he watched the humans depart Tarion 5 for their next objective, Rilner realized that the first arrival was only the beginning. Had shown the galaxy their power, their intelligence, and their restraint. The frontier worlds had been transformed. Citizens whispered in awe. Soldiers feared and respected them. And alien leaders could no longer dismiss the myths. Rilner's final thought, before reporting back to the Council, was simple. Humans were not just a threat, they were a lesson. They had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The first arrival had ended. But the human legacy was only beginning. The galaxy had seen a glimpse of their strength, strategy, and honor. And soon, every world would come to understand that humans were unlike any species it had ever encountered. The galaxy had begun to change. The humans' first arrival had sent shockwaves through the Varanth Alliance, and every world on the frontier knew that legends were real. Rilner watched from his ship as fleets moved across star systems, each human maneuver precise, calculated, and purposeful. The aliens no longer laughed at the stories. Fear and respect had replaced disbelief. The humans were not reckless. Every fleet, every squad, every strike was executed with strategy and intelligence. They anticipated attacks, adapted instantly, and always achieved their objectives with minimal loss. For the first time in centuries, the Varanth were facing an enemy they could not fully understand and that terrified them. On the planet Viridian, the first major turning point occurred. A Varanth armada had gathered to defend the system, confident that overwhelming numbers would stop the humans. They had 20 times the ships, advanced defenses, and years of experience. Yet when the humans arrived, the alien commanders quickly realized their calculations had failed. Small. Human strike teams bypassed the strongest defenses, disabling communication arrays and targeting key control points. Larger human vessels coordinated attacks on multiple fronts, forcing the alien fleet to split and exposing weaknesses they had never known existed. Within hours, the armada was in disarray. Some ships retreated, others were destroyed, and the humans maintained complete control of the system. Rilner observed every detail. The humans were not merely strong, they were intelligent beyond measure. Their strategies combined speed, deception, and precision in ways the Vorinth had never seen. It was not brute force that allowed them to dominate, it was cleverness, adaptability, and discipline. Even more astonishing, the humans did not engage unnecessarily. Civilians and settlements remained untouched. Alien soldiers captured during engagements were treated humanely. Entire systems recognized that the humans' power was terrifying, but their sense of justice and restraint was inspiring. In the Vorinth capital, panic reached its peak. Generals argued fiercely, blaming each other for failures. Some called for desperate strikes, while others proposed surrender. Lyra stood calmly, studying the reports from the frontier. She understood what few others could see. Humans were teaching the galaxy lessons about strategy, discipline, and honor. They are not just fighting to win, Lyra told the council. They are showing us a new way to act. We must learn, adapt, and respect them, or we will be left behind. Her words were met with resistance. Pride and tradition ran deep among the Vorinth. Many refused to accept that a species they had never encountered could surpass them in every way. Yet even skeptics could not deny the truth. Human fleets had shown the ability to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast forces far larger than themselves. Meanwhile, on Viridian, the humans consolidated their control. Rilner watched as human engineers repaired critical infrastructure, ensuring the planet's systems continued to function. Civilians were protected, and the environment remained largely intact. The aliens began to understand that humans were not conquerors, seeking destruction, they were organizers, leaders, and innovators. A turning point occurred when a Vorinth general tried a bold counterattack. He believed sheer force would overwhelm the humans. His fleet moved quickly, attempting to strike at the human command center. But the humans anticipated the move. Smaller ships distracted the alien armada, while larger vessels struck at critical points, crippling engines, navigation systems, and weapons. The counterattack failed completely. Rilner could hardly believe what he was seeing. The humans had planned for every possibility, expected every move, and adapted instantly to changes. It was as if they could see the future. Alien soldiers began whispering about their opponents in awe. "They are more than fighters," one said quietly. "They are like nothing we have ever known." Across the frontier, other systems experienced similar results. Human fleets moved with precision, disabling defenses, capturing control points, and leaving civilians unharmed. Every engagement reinforced the same lesson. Humans were extraordinary. They combined courage, intelligence, and discipline in a way the galaxy had never seen. Rilner began to notice another pattern. The humans were not merely taking territory, they were inspiring those they encountered. Local populations began cooperating, offering information, and even aiding human operations. Soldiers who had once fought the Vorinth reluctantly joined human efforts, seeing the benefits of their approach. In one system, a group of young aliens approached Rilner. "Why do they fight without destroying everything?" one asked. Rilner smiled. "Because they are not here to conquer for the sake of power," he said. "They are here to achieve their goals, protect the innocent, and leave systems better than they found them. That is why they are different." Even the most hardened Vorinth leaders began to realize that they could not fight humans with pride and arrogance alone. To survive, they would need to learn, adapt, and respect their opponents. The humans were not merely invaders, they were a standard, a challenge, and a lesson all at once. As the humans advanced, Rilner reported their progress constantly. Every move is precise, calculated, and effective. They do not fight recklessly. They do not kill unnecessarily. They are teaching the galaxy a new standard of strategy and honor. The turning tide became undeniable when the humans secured the planet Arnthal, a major industrial hub. Alien forces attempted to resist, but human strategy and coordination were flawless. Defense systems were disabled, supply lines were captured, and key leaders surrendered without a fight. Civilians cheered the humans, grateful for their protection and fairness. Rilner could not help but feel admiration. Humans were not gods, but they were something extraordinary. They combined strength with intelligence, courage with restraint, and power with fairness. Every system they liberated became an example of what the galaxy could achieve if it embraced human principles. In the council, arguments shifted. Even the most stubborn leaders began to admit that humans were unlike any species they had ever faced. Some advocated for negotiation, recognizing that brute force could not win. Others reluctantly agreed that the humans' approach was superior in every way. The turning tide was not just on the battlefield, it was in the minds of the Varanth leadership. Rilner's observations confirmed one truth: humans were changing the galaxy. Their arrival was not merely a military campaign, it was a demonstration of what a species could achieve through intelligence, discipline, and honor. Alien soldiers, civilians, and leaders alike began to see humans as more than a threat. They were a standard, a challenge, and an inspiration. As the humans continued their advance, Rilner realized that the first true victories were only the beginning. The Varanth had been humbled, their pride shaken, and their strategies exposed. Humanity had proven that strength alone did not define greatness. Strategy, intelligence, and moral discipline were equally important. By the end of the campaign on Viridian and Orenthal, the frontier had changed forever. Alien populations no longer feared humans entirely, they respected them. Soldiers whispered their names with a mixture of awe and fear. Even the Varanth generals, once confident in their superiority, began to study the humans' tactics and philosophy. Rilner watched from his ship as the human fleet moved to the next objective. His thoughts were clear. Humans were extraordinary. They had arrived as legends, and now they were rewriting history. Their strategy, discipline, and honor had turned the tide of the war, inspiring even those they had fought against. For the first time, Rilner understood what it meant to witness a species that could change the galaxy not just through strength, but through intelligence, courage, and fairness. The humans were not just warriors. They were visionaries, leaders, and teachers. And as their ships disappeared into the stars, moving toward the heart of the Varanth Empire, Rilner knew one thing for certain: the galaxy would never be the same. The turning tide had begun. Humanity's influence would spread across systems, reshaping ideas of power, strategy, and honor forever. The legends had been true. Humans were real, and now they were unstoppable. The Varanth capital was the heart of the empire. Its spires glinted in the light of three suns, a monument to centuries of power and control. From the highest council chambers to the lowest industrial zones, the people had grown confident in their strength. Yet now, after months of human campaigns across the frontier, confidence had turned into unease. The humans were no longer a distant myth. They were real, they were powerful, and they were approaching the heart of the Varanth empire itself. Rilner's sensors detected the human fleet long before it arrived. Ships of every size moved with impossible coordination, arriving silently yet confidently. They were not reckless nor chaotic. Every formation, every maneuver spoke of discipline, intelligence, and precision. The humans had come not just to conquer, but to demonstrate mastery. In the council halls, panic had reached its peak. Generals argued over strategies, each desperate to find a solution. Some called for total annihilation of the approaching humans, while others suggested negotiation. Even the most confident leaders admitted privately that nothing they had prepared could match human capability. Lyra, standing among the council members, listened silently. She had studied the humans for months and had come to understand them in ways few others had. "They are not here to destroy for the sake of power," she said quietly, addressing those who would listen. "They fight with strategy, courage, and honor. Their goal is to achieve objectives efficiently and fairly. If we meet them with aggression alone, we will fail. But if we understand them, perhaps we can survive and learn." Her words carried little weight among the older generals, but among the younger leaders and diplomats, they sparked hope. Perhaps humans could be reasoned with. Perhaps they were more than warriors, they were problem solvers, negotiators, and teachers. The first human strike was not an attack in the traditional sense. Small squads landed on critical systems, not to destroy, but to secure and protect. Supply lines were restored, communications re-established, and vital infrastructure repaired. Civilians watched in awe as humans moved through cities without causing panic. Treating all inhabitants with respect and care, Rilner could hardly believe what he was seeing. Humans had the power to crush entire fleets, yet they chose precision over destruction. They had the strength to dominate worlds, yet they sought order and stability instead of chaos. Every action reflected not just intelligence, but an unspoken code of honor. When the humans reached the capital itself, the Council prepared for the worst. Defense fleets were deployed, orbital weapons charged, and ground forces readied. Yet the humans did not immediately attack. Their fleets took positions in orbit, scanning and analyzing, waiting for the right moment to act. Then came the human emissaries. They arrived not with weapons raised, but with proposals. The humans spoke clearly, calmly, and confidently. They offered terms that were fair and achievable, surrendering strategic control of key sectors in exchange for protection, guidance, and the promise of stability. The message was clear. Humans did not seek total domination. They sought order, efficiency, and cooperation. For the first time, the Varanth leaders hesitated. They realized that this was not a normal invasion. The humans were demonstrating power, yes, but also wisdom. They had the ability to destroy, yet they chose to negotiate, to reason, and to lead. Rilner watched as one of the human commanders met with the council in person. Their presence was calm, authoritative, and confident. There was no threat in their tone, no arrogance in their behavior. Yet every word carried weight, every gesture demonstrated intelligence. Every plan displayed strategic mastery. The council was torn. Some feared surrender, seeing it as weakness. Others saw opportunity, recognizing that humans offered a chance to rebuild the galaxy in a way that was just efficient and honorable. Lyra stood quietly, watching the humans work. She understood that their arrival marked not the end of the Varanth, but the beginning of a new era. Negotiations continued for days. Human representatives traveled through the capital, inspecting systems, meeting with leaders, and ensuring that their proposals were fair and achievable. They never threatened, never coerced unnecessarily, but their reputation alone inspired compliance. The humans' presence demonstrated that strength need not be brutal, that intelligence could triumph over aggression, and that honor could lead where fear could not. Meanwhile, Rilner observed the transformation across the galaxy. Systems once under strict control of the Varanth began cooperating with human forces. Formerly isolated worlds shared information, repaired infrastructure, and contributed resources. Even alien soldiers who had once fought fiercely against the humans began to respect them. Some quietly joined their ranks, recognizing that humans offered a model of leadership and efficiency unlike anything they had experienced. The humans' final operation involved securing the central hub of the Empire, a complex of planets and stations critical to Varanth governance. Their strategy was flawless. Fleets moved in precise formations, disabling defenses without unnecessary destruction. Ground teams secured critical points, protected civilians, ensured that essential services continued without interruption. The humans had demonstrated once again that power could be applied wisely and humanely. In the final council meeting, the Varanth leaders faced a choice. They could continue resistance and risk complete devastation, or they could accept the humans' guidance and begin a new era. After much debate, they agreed to accept the terms. Human strategy, intelligence, and honor had proven overwhelming, and there was no reason to fight further. Rilner felt a sense of awe as he watched the humans coordinate the transition. Entire sectors of the galaxy were now operating efficiently under human guidance. Trade routes reopened, communication networks restored, and former conflict zones stabilized. The humans had done more than win battles, they had transformed the galaxy. Civilians, soldiers, and leaders alike began to whisper tales of humanity. The myth that had once been dismissed as legend was now a reality that inspired hope, admiration, and respect. Humans were no longer a story told to frighten children. They were remembered as heroes, innovators, and leaders. Rilner reflected on the journey from the first sightings to the final arrival. Humans had started as a distant myth, a story whispered among the stars. Now, they had become a standard by which all civilizations would measure themselves. Strength, intelligence, courage, and honor were no longer abstract ideas. They were embodied in humanity itself. In the weeks following the humans' final operations, the galaxy began to prosper. Systems rebuilt quickly, trade flourished, and old conflicts were resolved. The humans did not stay indefinitely. Their mission was not conquest, but guidance. Once the foundations were secure, their fleets departed, leaving behind a galaxy transformed. Even after their departure, the legacy of humanity remained. Stories of their skill, discipline, and fairness spread across worlds. Citizens, soldiers, and leaders alike began to emulate human strategies, values, and principles. The galaxy had been changed not by brute force alone, but by intelligence, courage, and honor. Rilner watched the final human ships disappear into the stars. A mixture of awe and hope filled him. The humans had arrived as myths and departed as legends. They had shown that true power was not merely the ability to destroy, but the ability to lead, inspire, and improve the galaxy. For the first time, Rilner understood the truth behind the legends. Humans were extraordinary not because of their strength alone, but because of how they applied it. They had arrived, turned the tide, and left a legacy that would endure for generations. And so, across the galaxy, the story of humans was no longer a myth. It was history. It was a lesson. It was a standard for all to follow. The stars whispered their name, not with fear, but with awe, humanity. The galaxy would never forget the day the myths became reality.